Monday, November 27th, 2023, and the time is 4:02. I'll now read the appeal statement. Pursuant to the provisions of 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Community Oversight Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. I'll also read the public comment statement. Pursuant to TCA 8-44-1, a period of public comment is reserved to provide the public with the opportunity to comment on matters that are germane to the items on the agenda. Each speaker is allowed up to 2 minutes to speak. Speakers may register in advance by signing up on the public comment sheet located at the entrance to the meeting room. Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
We do indeed.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to our approval of minutes. We received the minutes today. We did. Did we review them? Did you get them, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, do we have a motion to approve our minutes?
I'm so moved.
All right. Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we have approved minutes. We'll now move on to our chair remarks. All right, we have now made our way to the second meeting of the Community Review Board. It has been a journey getting to this point, and a lot has happened between our first meeting that was on October 27th until now. But one of the biggest accomplishments that we have been able to achieve as the Community Review Board is that we have a full staff of employees. And that is to be commended by the hard work from our Metro government, but then also our staff and our department. They stayed dedicated, committed to the cause, committed to the work, and we now have a full staff for the Community Review Board. After which, everyone was technically laid off. It was a full layoff of staff. And so I want to make sure that we don't take this lightly, and we remember that staff were right in the middle of all of the assaults that were waged against the Community Oversight Board, and they were able to weather that storm. And so that's something that we should keep in front of us and keep at the top of mind when we're thinking about the work as we move ahead. I also want to bring to our remembrance the dedication from our new mayor, who promised to support the Community Review Board, who promised to ensure that we had a fair process when we were going through this abolishment, if you will, of the Community Oversight Board. And he's made good upon the promises that he has promised us thus far. But we still have a long road to go. We still have to meet with the chief of police. We still have to create an MOU. We still have to review our bylaws. We still have a long road to go. And so I encourage our mayoral staff and our government employees who have been intricate in helping us get to this point to stay with us as we continue to move forward. And I'd also like to publicly invite Mayor Freddie O'Connell and Chief John Drake to our January board meeting. I always say a new year, a new you. So a new year gives way to a fresh, new possibility of what life can be on the other side of the Community Review Board and what it can mean for community members who have stayed beside us and continue to believe in what we've done over these 4.5 years at the Community Oversight Board. A few of us traveled to Chicago, Illinois, about 2 weeks ago to the NACO conference, and it was exceptional. A good number of the staff attended, and what I witnessed was hope in its rarest form. We are not alone when we are talking about the preemption of oversight across the nation. And so it was good to be with other oversight entities, other review boards who can identify with what we've been going through this past year. But not only that, really helping to shape and give way to what could be for the Community Review Board. Nashville, we have fought a really good fight, and the good thing about it is the fight is not over. And so that's what we were able to get from the NACO conference, but also make some excellent connections. Not only did we speak with and talk with the mayor of Chicago, we talked with the U.S. Deputy District Attorney. We met with the Inspector General in Chicago and in Maryland. So it was an exceptional time that gave us so much, that was so rich in not only knowledge, but really understanding what community review boards can look like after they've been preempted. And so I want to encourage us to circulate that material that we received, Director Fitcher, to the board members so they can get a good understanding of what we had that entire week. I know Board Member Witzel was able to join us as well. So I would like to encourage us to review some of that material when we receive it from Director Fitcher. I also want to congratulate Executive Director Jill Fitcher, who was named as a recipient of the President's Award at the NAACP Freedom Fund banquet. And not only was it a direct reflection of her hard work and dedication to oversight in Nashville, but it was a reflection of the hard work and dedication of the staff and the board. It's not easy being on a board like the Community Oversight Board. And so to have that recognition from the NAACP, a national civil rights organization that was built on fairness, justice, social equality, is pretty commendable. And so I want us to all be proud that not only of the work that Director Fitcher has done, but the work that we're doing now. And so I want to encourage us as well to continue in that work and continue to grow in the work as the work continues to grow. So that is the conclusion of my chair remarks. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew the great things that have been going on and then some things that we have to look forward to.
You're certainly completely capable of inviting the mayor and the chief of police. Would you like also to have a hopefully unanimous resolution of the board officially inviting both of them to the January meeting?
Yes, that would be great.
I so move.
All right. Can I get a second? All right. Thank you, Member Wynn. All in favor? Aye. All right. So we have an official invitation, don't we? All right. So once we have that date, we'll send that invitation out to the mayor and to the chief of police. We'll now move on to the executive director's report. Director Fitcher.
All right, so I did this slightly different than what we've done in the past, simply because We don't have specific rules, and so I just I haven't been in here so long, I forgot. Hello? Okay. Mr. Kiley and I have talked about this complaint process and how that's going to move forward. And what we've discovered is until we have an MOU, it's really difficult to figure out what this process is going to look like. And so what he did was I guess it was last week, Wednesday, forwarded 5 complaints that we received over to OPA for them to investigate. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we have SOPs, a framework, draft SOPs that have large blanks in them that I think we'll need an MOU in before we really know, how much time things are going to take, what kind of materials they're going to give us and all that kind of stuff. With the complaints now, what we've done to keep them moving without trying to create a backlog, is that as of now, because we do not have an MOU, we do not know, and we have not fully consulted with our friends at Metro Legal yet, we don't know the full extent of what this process is going to look like. So I've just forwarded them, basically we are getting the permission from the complainant first. So we're contacting the complainant, explaining the change in the law, explaining the limitations on what we can do, and just asking them, would you like us to forward this on to OPA or not? Most of them have said yes, so that's where those 5 came from, and I sent those over. I don't think it's working. I've tried to. There we go. Sent those over to Director Moranti and Captain Starling and a couple of other 2 or 3 other people they asked me to put on there. But so we're keeping it very simple for right now, but they are at least moving.
What we have decided to do was to forward all of the information that we receive, if it's a complaint, on over to the Office of Professional Accountability. And so we haven't documented those as complaints that we are not starting our process for complaints where we would investigate those until we have our stuff set up. So I would say sometime in January, once we have our January meeting, we have an MOU in place. If it takes longer than that, is when we will start processing complaints so that we can also receive them back. I don't want to start this process and be in the hole and start where we end up with a backlog of complaints that need to be audited, or whatever term we want to use. So we're waiting. So as we get them in, we just are going to forward them over to them in that regard.
And I will say that on the back end of that, so for these that we've sent over, given them our case tracking numbers and all that, so when they complete their process, I don't know if they're going to send them back to us or not, because again, no MOU, but when they do complete that, we are tracking those numbers. So if the board, when those OPA investigations are done, if the board would like us to follow up and try to audit them, we will at least have the numbers and know, all right, this is what we sent and when. And so that can all be sorted out once we have the MOU.
And hopefully by that time, we'll have our really great tracking system in place. Tony Rice, the developer of Civil, was at the NACO conference and is looking forward to working with us to set that up. That process will take it have to go through procurement because of all of the different issues with networking, developing a software for us to do that. But of course, when we were there, we found out that many agencies across the country now have started using Civil, and so we are on the back end of that a little bit. So I'm assuming that the cost is going to be not significantly more, but it's going to cost more.
And so we have already received the okay for that. Is that correct? Or how will that process go?
No, we haven't received the okay. The only thing that we received the okay was that if we decided to move to the GIS platform, that we got that approval. But this is still, it has to go through the finance process, the procurement process first. Any questions about the complaint process?
Member Witzel and then Member Goddard.
I'm assuming that like anyone who has a complaint knows or they could always come back to us if they didn't want OPA to have their complaint. They could wait until we were in place and ready to take their complaint. They have that option.
Yeah, and you have to remember the process is that the complaint has to be closed.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's this language in the law that says that we get the complaints back once they have been, their investigation is complete and closed.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we want to make certain that we're educating the public when they call us about that. And so Dave has worked with Simone about that as well. She's doing the intake on that. It's not a process that I'm super comfortable with at this point, but since we don't have an MOU in place, I think it makes sense instead of just having complaints just stacked up and nobody's, getting that information. It's better to have it go there and they start a process than not to have a process at all.
Absolutely.
Member Goddard.
Executive Director Fisher, this is out of order in your report. Just scoop me to later or towards the end. If the board shares this interest, I have a significant interest in looking at officer-involved shootings that have happened after January 1, which we still have jurisdiction of, if I understand right. I'm looking at the two lawyers on the end. And whether, especially now that we don't have full things back to work on, whatever else, there are any of those where we opened files, I think most of them are director files, that we could pick up and look at and put in requests for OPA's files and take a look at officer-involved shootings and review those. I think there's a significant, some of y'all know much better than I, but I think there's a significant community interest in officer-involved shootings, and having a third party, specifically this third party, take a look at that. I would be very interested in pursuing that if that's both legal and appropriate.
Yeah, and I think that there's only been one since July 1, since we didn't get anything, but there were, of course, there was some that happened from January to July, and we got most of the information. It was like 3 of them that we did get information, caps and
From
before the change.
Mm-hmm.
I may be misreading or misremembering, but I thought we had jurisdiction for anything after January 1.
No, we do, but I was
Okay,
saying some of that
that's
information
fine.
we have already.
Oh, I'm
Right, yeah,
okay.
that's what I'm
All right.
saying. Some of it, the one that we don't was one where we didn't get the call, we didn't know about it. That happened.
And that was OPA, but some of them will be TBI reports that
Yeah.
just come back, and then it's really the district attorney's office that signs off on that TBI file.
Well, I know there's a delay getting there, but just at some point,
Yeah.
even if it's
Yes, I
6 months
agree with
later,
you. I think we
whatever,
should
pick
do
it up
that.
and run with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great area to look in, especially since we were having, I think, a few issues with those, the last few officer-involved shootings with obtaining some of the information and getting access, right?
We didn't get any of that stuff.
Okay.
Right.
I thought so. So I think that's a great idea, Member Goddard. So back to the complaints, Executive Director Fisher. So you said you've directed 5 to OPA,
Yes,
okay? You've had 11 calls,
yes.
okay? They haven't been documented. And so.
No, they're documented. They're all in our system, but they're listed as contacts.
Right,
instead
so
of
we hadn't
complaints.
broken them out, right,
Yes.
to really, okay. And so, Assistant Director Kylie, have you had any conversation with Director Morante, and how did this kind of process come about?
There has not been any conversation with Director Morante at all. I emailed Captain Starling and Director Morante and essentially said, hey, here's kind of what we're thinking. I'm just going to forward these to you. Who should I forward them to? And Captain Starling told me a couple more people he asked me to add to the chain. So there's about 4 Director Morante and then 3 other MNPD personnel. And that is all.
Well,
So they have not, there hasn't been, I have not spoken to OPA beyond that about what the process is going to look like.
in September, I emailed Director Morante, and my email is, as we transition to a community review board, I would like to communicate on the transfer of current open COB investigations that will not be complete before the deadline date of October the 26th. Due to not having access to MNPD records, body-worn camera video, interviews with officers, or any other key factors. Please let me know if your department has worked on a policy related to the receipt of complaints from the new CRB, and share with me any information that you deem necessary for our agencies to start the process of sharing information. I sent that to her September the 27th. And she responded that she says, thanks for reaching out. We're willing to take referrals in whatever format you wish. Their only requirement is that they receive all the information that we have in each case, that we may email the information over to her. And if there are interviews or documents that have been collected by our staff, put those on a thumb drive and send them. And once they have completed their investigation and the sanctions are finalized, a copy of our case summary was sent by email or thumb drive. And then they said that they, something about the number of investigators that they have, they just have the same amount. And their policy remains the same.
Okay, so there wasn't any discussion in that email about retrieving complaints that are not coming through the community review board?
No.
Okay. Attorney Fox.
Yes.
This is where I have a question for you. So, in the case of us, reviewing and creating a new MOU, Member Goddard is going to help with the MOU. How do you see us engaging with OPA to ensure that we are having open communication and dialogue, especially as we are creating this MOU and obtaining information that is just not a one-way from the Community Review Board, but receiving information that we need to conduct our audits of complaints that are coming outside of what we are receiving?
Well, I think that I was part of some meetings about the last MOU with Chief Hager, and so I was wondering, since he knows Mr. Goddard and, of course, Jill Fitchard, maybe they could ask for a meeting with Chief Hager?
Okay.
And Kathy?
And Kathy Morante.
That's what I would start with.
Have you reached out to Chief Hager?
I reached out to him on one specific question, and I said, I'm not going to hold you to it, just your thoughts. I said, I'm concerned about this. We can't get filed until the complaint is closed, and how that interacted with an underlying subject matter that might be an ongoing criminal case or still an open case, but this can be open for years. And his response was helpful. He said, I view those as two separate things. When the OPA investigation is closed, that's when we go to documents. If there's an ongoing underlying criminal case, there may be redactions of some things in there, and we'll just have to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. But it's not a situation we've got to wait till the end of the underlying criminal case, till it's closed, before we get our documents and move forward.
Okay.
I view that as positive. That was just a big enough overriding issue to lots of things in my mind. I did want to reach out to him to get his initial thoughts on that.
Okay, but no discussion on the MOU and starting those conversations back and getting a new MOU for the Community Review Board. So none of that.
No specifics. I did generally mention we would need to revise the MOU. I didn't say a new one. It could be either one revised.
Right.
In light of the statute.
For the new department.
Right. Right.
So the one thing that I think we don't want to miss is that Chief Hagar, we did email and correspond with Chief Drake, who offered Chief Hagar's assistance in the MOU, but what we were requesting was a meeting with Chief Drake to help set the tone of what the relationship would look like for the Community Review Board and MNPD, and that hasn't happened yet. And so I did speak with Mayor O'Connell last week, and he did say that he was going to assist us in getting a meeting with the chief, and he would be present at that meeting as well. And so then we went into the Thanksgiving holiday. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Mayor O'Connell regarding a meeting. So I would like to meet with Chief Drake before we meet with Chief Hagar, so we can ensure that, any kind of amicable assistance and really kind of setting the tone will come from our initial meeting with Chief Drake. Okay. Member Holloway?
I think you're on the right track. Chief Drake and Professional Accountability all work for the mayor. Mm-hmm. And we can get a good understanding, let the mayor see what we'll be going through, and the process needs to be a speedy process. We have to wait till they complete their investigation, and then we'll be allowed to get information. And we were talking about before how to clear cases, but we need a speedy process. And the only way we can get that speedy process is make sure we get a mutual understanding with the mayor and the police department. Because as we can see now, they're not in favor, but they thank the law that they don't have to cooperate as like they did once before. Right. But if the mayor put his singing to them, then I'm sure if they want a job, that they would do what needs to be done.
All right. I agree. Director Fisher?
Oh, I agree. All right. The next thing that I wanted to, any other questions about the complaint process? No? Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about research recommendations. I know that I sent you all, I didn't send you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say, I sent it to you. I sent it to Gavin about the sexual misconduct report, because that was the last thing that we did as the COB. It's super important. I'm going to tell you that they had a whole panel discussion about that at the NACO conference. It was enlightening. It is something that a lot of departments are putting together. I want to share as much information about that. There was some really great notes that we'll pass on to you. They had some sexual assault advocates on board. They had someone from the DA's office, and then they had from COPA, they had the woman that runs that department who helps investigate officers who have been, where there's been alleged sexual misconduct. It was a really wonderful panel. And so when I spoke with Gavin about this a few weeks ago, we talked about, because we're creating new policies and new recommendations, that to pause it slightly until we figured out if we want to continue with the way that we have been in the past doing our policy recommendations. I thought that would be something that you all could have a discussion about, because if we create a new policy around that, we would need to do that quickly in order, because I don't want this report to sit too long. I want it to get moving. Per the old COB policy, the next step would be to host a public forum and then receive public feedback. And they said they are ready to do that, but did not want to go forward until we had, a clear understanding of what you all wanted to do. So the two options here would be to continue with the same policy that we already have in place for policy recommendations, or number two, work on a new policy and then, move forward with that. That could take several months though, or at least a month. So I will defer to you on how you want to handle that.
Member Goddard?
This raises a serious question. Ms. Fox, in your markup, you have stricken under board's mission to examine and issue policy recommendations regarding local law enforcement policies and practices, with a note that it was deleted because it's not part of our duties under state law. And obviously, Jill, your comments assume that we do have this authority going forward, which I think was my understanding. This may not be the place to have this discussion, but those are two diametrically opposed things we're talking about here. We need to run it to ground.
We do. And so what I would suggest is that everyone have an opportunity to look at the red lines that we were given for our bylaws. And then at our next executive committee meeting, where everyone, all board members are invited, that we be prepared to discuss what some of these red lines are. We received this information this afternoon.
Exactly.
And so we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to review them in their totality and make sure that if you have any comments or questions, that we're able to refer them to Ms. Fox, but then also do our homework and make sure that we have a clear understanding of what our duties are as a board and then what the law is saying. And so I would really prefer that before we have an open conversation about this.
Hey, that wouldn't push back on what that wouldn't push back on what Director Fisher was saying. I just wanted to point that issue out. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, for those of us who've read it, we have a lot of questions. Member Brown?
Okay, I was just, maybe I missed the red line.
It was emailed to you, so I didn't print it out because there's some comments that I wanted to see.
Okay. So I apologize, somehow I missed it, but I've been having new iPhone and problems with email. Metro's view was that presently we cannot issue a report such as the sexual report.
I'm not exactly sure what the sexual report is, but my opinion of your duties are pulled from the statute. So that's what I've been looking for. So if you can share with me where you feel something is justified in the statute, I'm very open to reading it with you and talking about it. But I'm less comfortable implying that you have the duties that you previously had, since the state legislature unfortunately seemed to be trying to curtail your duties.
Because at one of our last meetings as the review board, as the oversight board, I believe we had a resolution to proceed forward with it.
We did.
And so I guess the other side of that question is there anything that prohibits us from doing it?
Well, I think that when there's a statute that says what your duties are, then it's usually implied that you don't have the other duties. I think it can be, if they're part of those duties, you can reasonably extrapolate some things, but you can't go crazy and extrapolate something that's really not implied. So it's a measure of degree about it. If it's really written clearly in the statute, then you do. If it's implied, then I think that you do. But if it's going to be a big jump to get there, then usually the courts don't find that you have that duty or authority.
Okay, well, need to take a look at it.
So that's
I'm not sure who would object.
Member Brown, thank you for that comment, and that is the reason why I wanted us to all have an opportunity to take a look at it. And then you can read it and reread it, and we'll come back at our executive committee meeting with questions and comments regarding what our duties are and what the law is actually saying.
And I'll
Member
add,
Beard.
oh, I was going to say, I'm sorry. I'll add that I'm happy to talk to anybody before the executive committee about specific questions, and we can talk it out, and I can speak to the director of law. I'm not trying to force my will on this commission at all, but I think that there is a question now about what your duties are since the state legislature has changed them.
I agree. There is a question, so that's why we need to discuss what those things are. We're going to go to Member Beard, and then we're going to go to Member Whistle.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have a document from the Metro Legal Department that outlines what they believe that our duties are, that just a bullet point document that outlines that information, or do we have a legal memo or a summary of what our duties are and what are under the new statute?
So what I received a couple of months ago before probably the 1st of September was a memo from Director Dietz.
Okay.
That spelled out a little bit of what how the process would go, but it was more in line with our staff being laid off, our budget, those big items. And so it did point out some legal.
It did point out some major, I read that same document, but
That's
I
the
do
only
not
thing I've
believe
received.
I do not believe that we have a document that sets forth what our, the scope of our duties are.
No,
Right.
I
And
have
I
not
do
seen
think
one.
that is something that we need to request from Metro Legal, as the legal department of the city of Metropolitan Nashville. I know that we have comments in the bylaw document, but I do believe that a document that sets forth our responsibilities and the scope of our duties would be beneficial to us as we review the bylaws. Because bylaws are standard procedures and other legalese, but I feel that even for the public, to understand what this new board scope is and what they expect from the board would be beneficial.
Right, thank you, Member Beard. Member Witzel?
I was just curious about when the executive committee meeting is.
So that is what we need to discuss regarding, since we are coming up on the Christmas holidays, we only have about 2 full weeks to, number one, get an executive committee meeting, but also get in our board meeting. And so you should be receiving some dates after this meeting in reference to your availability. And that would be everyone, every board member, all 7 of us being available to make the executive committee meeting to discuss the bylaws, the red lines, and some other pertinent issues regarding the MOU, how we proceed forward, and who will be in the meeting with Mayor O'Connell and Chief Drake, along with Director Fitchett and myself.
I do think in December, we're talking about the week of the 11th for the executive committee meeting possibly, and maybe we were able to get an additional date for December. I mean, everybody's trying to get their meetings in before the end of the month. And so the dates are real, they just don't have many. And then maybe the week of the 18th for the meeting. The regular meeting. So I will send that out to you shortly, right after this meeting, or while we're in the meeting, right before we leave. And so that you have those dates. So if you can just check your calendars and then respond really quickly, I can book that. Because I had to also remember, we have to have our meetings in a Metro office building or some Metro-owned building. And then also we have to make certain that M&N's schedule is like, it works with ours, okay? Because they have to stream these things. So that's been a little bit of the crazy part. And if you want to go ahead and talk about dates, that was on my list. We also need to determine whether or not you guys want to have a steady, whatever date you want to have your board meetings, whether it's on a Monday, a Wednesday, a Tuesday, whatever, not Tuesday, but any Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday, so that we can make certain that the public is aware that, hey, the CRB is having their meetings every third or fourth or second day, whatever day of the week, that it just is a consistent thing so that we can go ahead and try to book some meeting spaces for that, okay?
For the upcoming
And we're already behind the 8 ball because most people have already taken all the good time slots, okay? So,
Member Holloway?
We do have something scheduled on the 15th, all-day training, that's correct.
that's still up in the air on
It's
that
up in
day.
the air.
Yeah, so I'm going to send you some additional dates, because that day, the 15th, it wasn't for training, it was our regular board meeting.
Okay.
Right? And so we're thinking about trying to switch it around. So I know that this is last minute. We want to try to get these meetings in before the holidays, because I think that to be honest with you, the week of Christmas, with Christmas falling on Monday, is just a really bad week for people to have a meeting. So I will send those out to you shortly. You guys can look at it before, today. I'll send them to you in a few minutes, and then you can look at those dates.
And it's meant for you to, if you have to look at your calendar, really kind of, understand your schedule. And we want to make these meetings convenient for all of us to the best of our ability. So if you have something on Mondays that you have had to miss this past year, this is the opportunity to say that. We have a good, we're in a good position to reset. Schedule our meetings accordingly, and then really connect with the community to ensure that they have an opportunity to come and be a part of them as well. I did want to, before we move from the research recommendations, because that was the original conversation, I do want to let you all know that we had an offer from Member Wynn to provide us with some training. And so it is directly in line with our sexual misconduct report. It arms the board with the necessary training that it needs to handle a report and research of such nature. And so one of them will be trauma-informed response to victims of crime. That is a 90-minute training. And so it will be, critically important for us to carve out time within the next 60 days or so to take part in some of these trainings. And there's another one, officer-involved domestic and sexual violence. And so it will be upon us to ensure that we have the proper training to, move forward with research of this caliber. Director Fisher.
Yeah, so on that, I just wanted to read a little bit what NACO, for the title of their panel discussion. It says, attendees at this conference will benefit from learning about COPA's trauma-informed sexual misconduct investigations, including a victim-centered joint interview approach that is memorialized in a memorandum of understanding, where victim interviews are conducted jointly by COPA, the Law Enforcement Bureau which is Chicago Police Department's, they call it BIA, Bureau of Internal Affairs, and prosecutorial agencies, which is the Cook County State's Attorney. So all three of them jointly do this process. Additionally, panelists will discuss the historical path to civilian oversight of sexual misconduct investigations in the city of Chicago, including COPA's creation and structure of its special victim squad, a specialized team assembled to investigate these allegations. The role of victim advocates to ensuring a victim's health, safety, and wellness in a sexual misconduct investigation, and COPA's collaboration with leading advocacy agencies, and COPA's vision for future advancements surrounding civilian oversight of sexual misconduct investigations. And so although we're not doing it as specific like that, our report is not talking about us investigating them any longer. The fact that I think having this sexual misconduct recommendations to the police department, and then of course us having the ability, to review it after afterwards, I think is very helpful to our city, to victims of sexual assault and misconduct. So I'm looking forward to that discussion at our next meeting. Yeah.
Member Wynn, I wanted to ask you, could you give us a little context in, your trauma-informed response to victims of crime, your vast knowledge on sexual misconduct? Could you give us a little insight, especially regarding and pertaining to the research report that we received, and how we can move forward with that, and really not only assisting the community members of Nashville, Davidson County, but also really leveling up our sexual misconduct policy and how the MMPD handles sexual misconduct at this current time?
Well, there's two different things. One with COPA, with Chicago Police. One with COPA with Chicago Police. They're obviously the civilian oversight that in the past would review, and I know this because we did the review when I worked on this project for the Civil Rights Division. We were the ones who did the report on this, and then they're implementing the findings. That's what you all heard from Chicago Police. There was a disconnect between COPA and the Internal Affairs Division and Chicago Police. They weren't talking to one another. But Chicago Police did not have a sexual misconduct policy. These are two different things. There's policy, and then there's application of the policy. And the application is, how do you join with other groups to investigate these allegations that's transparent, where the public can trust it? So they had to come up with a policy first, and I understand they just agreed to their sexual misconduct policy, and the foundation of the Chicago policy is what our research group has already put together in our report for Metro Police. Two of them that stand out is the IACP's policy on sexual misconduct, which includes not only sexual misconduct against fellow members of the police department, but citizens. So it's a two-part process. The other policy is a policy created by Ending Violence Against Women International, which is it's a nonprofit that's funded by the Justice Department. Their policy is very similar to the IACP's policy. Those are the two most recent, up-to-date sexual misconduct policies in the country for law enforcement. And that's why they were used in our research for our report. So I don't know exactly where we would fit into that. We've got to get the police department, like Chicago, to agree to have a policy first that deals with how they detect it, how they investigate it, how they hold officers accountable for it, their mission statement to the public about what priority it is for the city and the police department. That's another thing. So it seems to me that we might go through the same process that Chicago's gone through with COPA. How do we fit into that process, if we do fit in that process? And how do we fit in under the new regulations under the state law that limits what we can do? That's my understanding of what's happened in Chicago and what I think what should happen here. First of all, the police department needs to say, okay, we agree, we need a sexual misconduct policy. Now let's start there, and then we'll work out whatever recommendations a group, whoever that might be, would say, yeah, we want to be part of that process as well. Because the problem with sexual misconduct is there's such a low reporting. Community oversight boards, and you all know this, are designed for people who are too afraid to talk to the police. Mm-hmm. And this is really exaggerated with sexual misconduct. So it just seems to me that whatever happens in the future with us in the Metro Police Department, we should absolutely be part of some management, some governing, some recommendation for the police department to hold their officers accountable for sexual misconduct, because the reporting is so low. So that's the sexual misconduct piece. The other part is the trauma-informed response to victims of crime. And I have to say that probably in the last maybe 10 years, we've really got a little bit better understanding of what all that means. Victim-centered, trauma-informed is the new sort of catchphrase for reform policing. And victim-centered is a process where the victim plays a bigger part in the law enforcement, the criminal justice process, because you can't force someone into the criminal justice system because of the consequences of it. Fear of retaliation from the offender, fear of exposure to the public. So there's a new thinking about this today, where whatever the apparatus looks like in the city to deal with any kind of traumatized victim, they have the option to go into other people besides the police department. An instance would be spousal rape, and we don't use that term anymore because rape is rape, but reporting rape against your husband has a consequence to it. If you talk to the police, that somebody's going to jail. If you report it to a rape crisis center, they give you the option of confidentiality. So victim-centered is a new approach that law enforcement is playing a part in, because if we demand that the victim report something before they get services, then a lot of victims won't report. So that's victim-centered. So the victim-centered part is them having some say in the process. The trauma part of it deals more with the neurobiology, and this is what happens to you when you're traumatized. And the new thinking on trauma is based in scientific knowledge from the Canadians and the researchers in the U.S. around fragmented memory. The problems with remembering things that happen to you that most people think you shouldn't remember. And I have to tell you, it's ironic, because the new thinking in trauma comes from traumatized police officers. The Canadians were the first to see this when they started interviewing citizens after foot pursuits. It was in Winnipeg or Windsor, one of those cities. And what they saw was the officer's description of what happened. This played out in Chicago, where an officer, in a foot pursuit last year, shot someone throwing a gun away in an alleyway. This all played out in that process with Chicago police not long ago. But they interviewed witnesses to the foot pursuit, and the statements from the witnesses were almost completely different from the statements from the police officers. So the researchers in Canada, the neuroscientists, said this is trauma, and this is why law enforcement often makes judgments on victims' statements initially in the first reporting of a crime. And the example of that would be of rape cases. And in the past, when I or anybody else worked rape cases in Nashville, you would go to the hospital immediately, make a report, and the victim would say, I don't know what he looked like, I don't know who he is, and we would make basically statements in our narrative of the report saying that the victim wasn't reliable. The case would be reviewed by a sergeant, it would be unfounded, it would be dismissed, and it wouldn't even make it to the prosecutor's office. Earlier than that, the prosecutor's office here in Nashville demanded rape victims be polygraphed before they were introduced to the criminal justice system. That's not unique to Nashville. That was national standards for years. They stopped doing that. Now, the trauma-informed piece means that you understand not only the memory fragmentation, but the things that happens inside your body that you can't control, stress hormones affecting everything about yourself, running, fleeing, submitting, all fighting, all those things have a meaning to them based on the trauma that you're experiencing. All that should be in the basic training for law enforcement, because it doesn't just apply to rape victims, it applies to all crime victims. So if we're trauma-informed, that means we understand that we don't press traumatized victims to give us a statement, and when they try to give us a statement, they can't remember everything. It's like police shootings. Years ago, and I'll give you one quick example. Years ago, when we worked police shootings here, we would do immediate reenactments at the scene of a police shooting. The chief would demand it. And we would ask officers how many times they fired their weapon, and they would tell us 4, and their gun would be empty. And we would press them on that, and they said, no, I only fired four times. And we would write in their personnel file that they were lying to us. They were being deceptive in what happened about even people at the scene when there was a shooting. And after years of understanding this, we found out that they weren't being deceptive for the most part. That was what a traumatized brain looks like. You can't remember those things because of the stress hormones in your body. That's why nowadays the standard is 2 or 3 sleep cycles after a police shooting. You go home and those stress hormones will so dissipate out of your body to where you give a more concise report to the police. That's true in every traumatized crime victim. So the problem has been, let me get right down to it. I'm sorry I didn't mean to go on so long, but the problem has been decisions on the credibility of the victim have been based on initial statements after a traumatic event, which meant that very few rape cases made it to the prosecutor's office. Victims were discounted as lying to us, and they were unfounded and cleared. The cases were cleared when they shouldn't have been. Now, here's the other problem here. When you have a person who lives in constant trauma, we're talking about, people who live in high crime areas, and they call it poly-victimization, where you witness street shootings and domestic violence and bullying in school. You've got constant trauma 24 hours a day to people. That needs to be trained into law enforcement so they'll understand how people see them, because there's another layer of trauma, and that's community trauma, and that's the trauma that has been experienced by brown and black communities by white police historically, not only in Nashville, but nationwide. That's a whole nother trauma that has to be explored, and it's part of the trauma-informed experience with victims. We see it now with undocumented immigrant women. They don't report to law enforcement nationwide because they fear deportation, but they also are afraid of what may happen when the police are involved because of the historic discrimination against diverse populations, basically, overt, in-your-face racism and bias in policing. This is all connected, by the way. So all that has to be part of a fundamental change in police departments. So when an officer comes out of the academy, they don't have to be a specialist in sex crimes or any other crime. They know the basics around trauma when they interview any crime victim, who's somebody's robbed at an ATM, or your mother who was raped in a robbery. The trauma informed is the same for all of those people. So it has to be put in place. Now, when we interviewed Commander Laura, and he's a good man, he gave us his answers he had, I didn't hear a yes to a real comprehensive trauma-informed curriculum that's taught by Metro Police. I was never taught it, because it wasn't available then. This is new science. This is in the last 10 to 15 years. And it includes child abuse, includes elder abuse, it includes stalking, it includes human trafficking, it includes all the violent crimes around trauma. So that's the two different things. It's one, the sexual misconduct, that's you're doing it when you're doing it. The trauma is you don't realize what you're doing when you interview a traumatized victim and you press them to give you an answer when they can't. And then when they don't, then you say that they're not cooperating and you clear the case. And one example is what's just happened in Memphis. The lawsuit against the Memphis Police Department is now gone class action, and which means that and these are about rape kits, and the rape kits weren't tested in Memphis because the police department looked at the initial field reports and said that these were unfounded rape reports and unreliable statements from victims. And there were a large number of women who were raped by people the suspect's DNA was in the rape kits being housed by the police department, but they didn't test it because of biased decisions not to test the kits. So women were raped by people who should not have been raped because the suspect should have been held accountable. So the numbers, according to Memphis, are 12,000 victims now in the class action lawsuit. This is how all this is interconnected and co-occurring. The sexual misconduct, when you have a statement to the public how you feel about it, which means we're going to hold our own accountable first. And second, it's being trauma-informed when you train your patrol officers and your dispatchers and your chief and everybody else. So, sorry, I didn't mean to get long-winded, but that's basically the two issues that are really important, I think, to this board. I think you all agree.
Yeah. Thank you, number one, for really that comprehensive assessment of where we are, especially in relation to our recent sexual misconduct report. I will say, one of the last few PRRs that we reviewed regarding the alleged rape victim and the police, that report that someone filed with the Community Oversight Board was pretty sobering. And it really spoke to, the credibility of the rape victim, right? And how antiquated policies and systems could be within our own police department. So to really ensure that we are providing the best oversight or review of a case like that would be upon us, right? To be trained, to be trauma informed, but then also be able to make sound recommendations for policy for MNPD.
Yeah, just to give you one quick example, and this, I'm not divulging anything I'm not allowed to, but when we interviewed the Internal Affairs Unit, Chicago Police, they had a special unit within the Chicago Internal Affairs Department that was a sex crimes investigation unit. And that's all they did was investigate sex crimes committed by Chicago police officers. And we did an interview with, I think, 7 or 8 of them. It's a small unit. And one of the questions that we asked them, we asked them about their education. Tell us about your formal training in investigating sex crimes, which is the most complex crime ever investigated by the police. It takes ages to become a really effective sex crimes investigator. And these were supposed to be the best of the best when inside Chicago Police. None of them had ever been trained in formal investigation of sex crimes.
I think that this is a great segue into with the retreat training, because we talked about, you remember when doing some of that training, that trauma-informed training for board members, because I think it is important that we understand a trauma-informed approach as we are reviewing audits, and the ability for those who have been harmed still may show up at meetings and want to discuss and add some comment to what we're reading. And so so there's board retreat that we need to discuss a date for. And I think that when the chair and I met recently, we had picked some dates in February, maybe. Was it February, early March? And so we want to send those out to you. We want to ask Member Nguyen to do the trauma-informed. And then I think that, were we talking about anyone else?
Yes, Member Witzel, to provide a list of trainings that you're capable of, conducting for the review board. And so we will have our list of trainings once we get that from you.
And then possibly having someone from outside of our board to come in and do whichever trainings that we discuss and figure out which ones that would be helpful to the board. So that's a board retreat. Our beautiful chair would like to have that over several days, which I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. So it may be a full day on a Saturday. And so instead of, like, she was like, maybe a Friday afternoon and then a Saturday morning. I just think maybe just for logistic purposes, it may just have to be one day, maybe 6 hours. Not a full day, not like a whole 8 hours, but I'm saying we have a nice lunch, have some training, and then like maybe, start around 9 and end around 2.
Remember when?
I can modify the course.
Okay.
To like that you need.
Because you said it was a full 8-hour day.
We can do an 8, but if you want to do an hour or so on each topic,
Okay.
that's doable as well.
And that brings me to my question to Attorney Fox about how these retreats are, we're wanting to have a retreat for training purposes. Is that, I don't know how that looks based on the law and open meetings and all that.
Well, I guess if it's information that you'll be receiving only, I think you should still notice it to the public, but I think you could hold it somewhere else. If you are going to be deliberating about the kind of work that you do, then you need to hold it in a public meeting, public building.
So we can have the meeting and not have the public present? Although we have to publicly meet? Like, I'm saying...
No, the public is allowed to attend.
So the public can't, so we have to publicize the retreat, right? And then the public will have access to participate, attend the retreat.
Yes.
Okay.
Chair. I'll get with Laura later, agree to disagree at this point.
Okay, all right, so we know
I'm happy to talk about it some more. I guess I don't know the scope of what the retreat would entail, is probably where I'm coming from.
But
And
we just trainings, like we just talked, informational trainings, bias training, I don't know, whichever topics we choose.
I see, so you wouldn't be doing any
We're not going to be
commission business?
deliberating on anything.
Okay.
These are all educational purposes.
Okay. If you're not deliberating towards anything, then you don't have to hold it as a public meeting. Some commissions do when they do training, but you don't have to.
Thank you. Member
Yeah,
Williams.
one last thing, and I promise I'll end it there. It's always been my view that when you, and I've said this before before this board, when you raise the standard, you lower the likelihood of liability. That's a pretty easy thing to understand. It seems to me, and I'm not faulting the legal department, they do great work there, but it seems to me what I'm hearing today is that we're limited on giving the police department recommendations for policy inside the police department. Is that what I'm hearing today?
Well, I think what you will see within the bylaws could probably, lead to that conclusion. But I don't believe that we have all discussed it and reached a conclusion on what that would actually look like for the Community Review Board. Right. That is the reason why I would like for all of us to review it, read it, reread it, and come with questions and comments, because I do believe we will disagree with a lot of that assessment.
Well, look, I guess it's just, for me, it's this simple. What we recommend to the police department lowers the likelihood of liability for the city.
It does.
Which seems to be contrary for the legal department not to support that. I hope that the legal department looks at it that way, that says they're doing something to improve and maybe lower the likelihood of millions and millions of dollars of lawsuits for the city, which is what Memphis is about to face.
Yeah, Memphis and a few more other places across the country.
So I just want to make that point that we're not picking on anybody. We're trying to make a higher standard police department, and to have in the legal department support would be a wonderful thing for the taxpayers of Nashville, who will eventually pay any settlement against an officer who commits sexual misconduct like the officers in Chicago did.
That's right.
Or the misconduct that went on with Memphis police. So I just want to get that on the record. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Member Wynn. Member Holloway?
Oh.
It wouldn't be a bad idea also in the process is getting an investigator from the police department to come and speak and let us know their procedure, what they do and how they go about doing it. If they're doing something that is not up to date, maybe they can pick up something from us. I mean, from me, from Mark, and they can take it back to their supervisor saying, this is what doing in other cities. This is something that we might need to look at, And if it shows that this is what they're doing, and we got to record it, then we have something to deal with. This is one of your staff people. This is how they do it, and you also are having this problem with the police department. So something needs to be done. A policy needs to be. You need to do a new policy on it. Like I said, save millions of dollars. Because a lot of companies are being sued and it almost looks like, how do I get paid? Hate to see it like that, but it kind of look like that sometimes. But a victim is a victim, and you have to treat them like that.
That's right. Member Witzel.
Yes, I don't want to get too far ahead because I know we have a lot on our plate, but I'm glad to know that we're able to have a meeting, what's the word for it? The retreat. Glad to know that we can have the retreat without just us collectively, just the board. But as Member Wynn was speaking, I kept thinking about the public. and thinking about how if the police are more trauma informed and then we are, but what about the public, the community knowing those things they should be looking for in that care or that service that they get from police. So I would love to see us at some point be able to find a way to extend that information to the community so that they know how they should be treated in these particular situations.
All right, I think that'll be right in line with our community engagement and communications that Director Fisher hopefully will speak about. Attorney Fox.
Yes, I just wanted to address the issue, and I know we said we could talk about it some more about what your powers are or are not, but it seems to me that what the statute is looking at is that your investigation as far as making recommendations to, as far as what you can make recommendations about in policies, it seems to me that the law is saying that you can do it if it relates to a grievance that has come to you, if there's been a complaint that comes to you, and you don't think that the investigation has been done correctly. That seems to be what the law is envisioning, that you would focus on that and give recommendations on those subjects. I think it's a different question whether you just issue recommendations, hey, here are the most recent best practices. So I think there's a little bit difference. The statute seems to focus on the complaints that come to you, that you're going to be reviewing them and making recommendations on those kinds of issues.
And how those recommendations correlate with the complaints. Okay. All right, that'll be interesting to dissect attorneys on the board. Member Brown?
Well, I guess just as a hypothetical, if we generated a complaint and then it processed through, would that give us leverage?
Like a director-initiated complaint?
There are director-initiated complaints that seem to be envisioned in this statute, yes.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions regarding this? Okay.
I'll just tell you
Director Fisher.
that I'm going to send out some dates, some potential dates for board retreat training. I know this is a lot of dates and a lot we're pulling on you. So be patient with us as we go through this process and make some time in for this because we have a lot to do to get us up to speed. I sent you all, I'm going to move into some of the things. I met with the chair. She made some board committee selections. I hope that you could find yourself in those board committees. I wanted to say them on the record. If you guys wanted to get in on another committee, that would be great too, because we want your help. So I'm just going to call these out really quickly, and then we'll move into the staff information that I wanted to share with you. So for the Rules and Bylaws Committee, there's Joe Brown, Walter Holloway, and Sean Witzel. And when we created these, we also were trying to pull in some of the knowledge that you have, but also pull you into things that you're not always 100% familiar with, because I think it pulls out from you creativeness and how we do the work that we're going to be doing for the community. MOU, we have Drew Goddard and Alicia Haddock. Nominations Committee, right now we only have Walter Holloway. If someone wanted to be or join that committee alongside of him, you could. Training, Education, and Mediation would be Mary Beard, Mark Wynn. Budget, Drew Goddard. We know you showed a special interest in that, and so we need to get together pretty soon because the budget season starts January. So I'm assuming that in December we might get those little notes that get ready, it's coming. Communications and Outreach would be Alicia Haddock and Sean Witzel. And so that is for board committees that we are needing to stand up this board. And so right now, we know the bylaws that we have are we're going to be reviewing those, but the rules, I don't know how we would be able to create these rules without the MOU agreement and knowing exactly everything that we're doing because the rules kind of spell those out. I mean, what we have now and what Wally Dietz had said a long time ago was the information that was pulled directly from the law in regards to how complaints and the process works. That sounds great, but I don't know how that works in real time when complaints come in. I do believe it's a guide, but not necessarily the exact how we will set the structure up. And then also I was looking at what Knoxville was doing since they were grandfathered in. That's the word that the House representative used. And so I wanted to just determine whether or not Knoxville was doing it the way it's, you know, the way that the bill spells out. And if they were doing something slightly different, I think then we need to just look at that and see if it is something effective that we could use as well. So any questions about your committee membership? Okay. All right.
I
so
do have a
okay,
comment.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I would like to join the MOU committee.
Okay, hold on. Okay, what did you say?
I would like to join the MOU committee.
Okay.
I have
And
experience in creating MOUs with the federal government, state government, other governments, so
okay.
very happy to
And
join.
Joe, Member Brown said he wanted to be added to that one too.
To the MOU committee?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? I mean, not for that one. I'm closing the MOU one. No, I'm just kidding.
And so, just for clarity, this is in addition to the committee that you're already on.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. So,
One second,
Okay, sorry.
Director Fisher. Member Goddard?
Most of us know this, help me out. All these committees will be public, if their meeting will be a public meeting, and any member of the public, including any board member, can come. Board member encouraged, if you want to come, hear the discussion, perhaps a little more right than the general public to comment on the discussion. That's always okay. Being a member creates an obligation to try to show up to as many meetings as possible if you're a member of the committee, but others are encouraged as well.
and when the MOU committee, I think setting priorities, discussing, you know, the stuff, and then there's always usually spokespersons that, you know, do the negotiation process. But however you guys want to do that is fine with me. I just wanted to show you, kind of talk about what that looked like, and we can do that in one of those meetings. So I'm going to move on to the information I sent to you. It said board members have been paired with staff to work collectively on a project that will assist with building internal structures. Because what I heard from my staff is that they wanted to be involved in this. And so I wanted them to, you know, put as much information in as they wanted. Like, what did they envision this this office looking like? And so what you have in front of you, what I put in a package was my take on a mission statement. The board can make any changes to it as they deem necessary, but we needed one immediately, and so I created that one, and also the board's vision, and then our values within the agency. So you should have this one that created all that. And then the next thing that you have is a community engagement values inquiry assessment activity. This is and if you look at those values, we try to incorporate those values alongside this little worksheet. Those values were relational, community history, collective ownership, collaborative work, cultural integrity, inclusivity, equity, all voices, all people, in spirit power. That is just a worksheet so that you can figure out where you are as it pertains to community engagement. The next one was specifically for whatever group that you were in. And so I'm going to start with compliance and intake. That is Joe Brown and Alicia Haddock. You would have received a mapping like this for you to work on yourself. It will be helpful when you are dealing with your other staff members. And it just was, some of the topics were voices. You have the groups, youth and young people, senior, golden agers, elected officials, other metro agencies, nonprofits and community organizations, complainants and victims, criminal justice stakeholders, and board and staff. And some of the questions that you had to ask yourself are, what makes this group instrumental to our work? That's under importance. Engagement is, how do we center their voices in our work processes and develop collaborative work? Benefits, how does having this group contribute to diversity, inclusion, equity, and integrity of the agency? And if we can't say diversity, we'll, what is it called? Inclusivity, or whatever. And then added value, the gift of having this group included. What would be missing if this group was not involved in this effort? And so I would like for you all to center those things. The staff members have already done that part, but I think it's still important for you all to think through that. And then when you meet with them and get their information, they're going to do presentations. They have been working on this. I asked them to have it ready by the first week of January. Someone from that group, whoever the leader is, will reach out to you to give you whatever information and updates on what they've worked on. And then hopefully by the first week of January, the presentations will happen either in an executive committee meeting or maybe a regular full board meeting. And that is pretty much all we had. And then what they were doing, what was important here, the things that I thought was super important is how do we center the voice of the community, which I already talked about, and then the 3 E's, which would be excellence, effectiveness, and efficiency. Are we doing this work in excellence? Are we effective in our delivery and how we're doing our work and our processes and systems? And are we being efficient? And that means, making certain that we're not wasteful of, our funds and whatever else, our time, our resources. And so that pretty much is it. If you have any questions about that, let me know. I also wanted to include in that, let me just say this really quickly. We took Mr. Meyer's information, and use this as as really the roadmap to make certain that we're not repeating these things. Taking the good stuff and continuing with it, and the things that we have the opportunity to build upon. You should receive this in your package too for each particular group. So this should be helpful to you to see where we had some inefficiencies, and so that we can, grow from there. Those were opportunities for growth. And then in your package, you would have received this as well. This came from NACO, and it says, how can civilian oversight of law enforcement help you? And then it talks about the different, this is pretty much the center of how NACO operates, and it supports effective policing, it builds bridges, it increases confidence in the police, it helps manage risk, it ensures greater accountability, and it protects the civil rights of citizens. And so, so I'm just going to go back and tell you who you're with. Compliance and intake is Joe Brown and Alicia Haddock, and you'll be contacted by your group's leader. Communication and outreach is Mary Beard, Drew Goddard, and Mark Wynn. And then research would be Walter Holloway and Sean Witzel. And those are the groups that you are in, and I don't know who the leaders are right off the top of my head, but somebody will contact you by email and get with you. And hopefully you can give them some insight into what they have. And I think that this is a good way for us to use as the roadmap to creating the Civilian Review Board, the policies, procedures, standard operating procedures. All right, any questions about that? I know it's a lot of work. Yeah. The last thing about that is this is your questionnaire for your group. You would have received that. I think that these questions, we went through these questions and thoughtfully created these, our leadership team and created these questionnaires. And they're to help you with your group. It might be helpful to see what the group has also answered. They look like these. So, research and policy questionnaire is going to be specific towards that. Communication, outreach, and engagement is going to be specific. And then compliance and intake. If you didn't get those, here you go. You can have those. Okay. Or the one, which group are you in, Joe? Compliance and intake. Let me just take a look. Okay, you're just in compliance. Here you go. All right. And that's pretty much it on that subject. The next thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is NACO is hosting a web conference. And I think it is going to be really great because some of the topics are good. But myself and staff member, our research lead, is Mr. Gavin Mr. Crowell Williamson, will be hosting with some others. And let me have. Okay, so Gavin is going to be one of the presenters on the standardization of data and oversight. He will be working alongside people from Colorado, Oakland, and Dallas, Texas. And so I sent you the link. If you want to join any of those, let me know so that the office can make certain that we get you registered and pay for whichever sessions that you want to attend. The sessions run from December the 5th through December the 15th, and they have a few per day. So you just pick which ones you're interested in, and I'll take care of getting you registered and taking care of the costs for those. I am going to also be a presenter, and mine is called Setting Community Boards Up for Success or Failure. So that is with the Denver office, as well as a woman who is an independent consultant she's been helping San Francisco and Oakland, California. So it should be a pretty lively thing. So if you guys are interested, let me know for any of those. I sent you the link for that. So you should have all of that information. And that's also for anyone in the public if you want to attend. The dates are from December the 5th through December the 15th. If you're interested. And so I think that might be it. I can't find my little paper I had just now. Hold on one second. I think that's it for me, Chair.
All right, thank you, Director Fisher, for that report. It's very thorough. I think you're telling us we have a lot of work to do. That's what it sounds like to me. Member Wynn, Member Beard, thank you for joining the MOU, Member Brown, the MOU committee. I think we have a lot of work ahead of us. We'll now move on to our public comment, if we have any, and we do not have any public comment. So we will move on to new business and announcements. Any new business and announcements? Member Wetzel.
I don't know if this counts as, that's not new business, I guess, but it's kind of an idea that I've been thinking about.
All right.
Thinking about how this board came to be, and that was through the support of the community when it came to collecting signatures, when it came to voting, to create the Community Oversight Board, which is now the Community Review Board. I think about how we have moved around in the city to accommodate or to reach the people in specific areas and pockets of the city, which I think is great. I had a thought about being that I am somebody who's on the board by way of a nomination from a community organization. I thought about, like, what if we reached out to different organizations within the city that make up a diverse population of people, and maybe partner with that organization to like give them a meeting, give them a month, like for our January meeting, have all your members come and fill up the seats at our meeting, and then partner with a different organization. Of course, it's open to the public. Anybody can come, but like being very intentional about those organizations and those groups to just give that extra push to have them bring all their members or bring the people that they serve in their communities to our meetings. I think having that intentional touch, direct touch, might get more people to come and see us. So just wanted to put that idea out there.
Sort of like an organization day?
Yeah,
like
yeah. Like they sponsored the day, or not, maybe not sponsored, but it's like an organization day. And I know, like, I am a part of NOAA, and NOAA is the organization that nominated me to be a part of this board, which I don't want to speak for NOAA, but that's certainly the type of thing that's up there, up the organization's alley. And I think we can partner with other groups, and I'd love to be a part of helping to make that happen if we decide we want to do something like that.
I love that idea, as well as, I mean, there's faith groups that we haven't connected with. I did have that on my agenda, so we can talk a little bit. I have community engagement and outreach, that we need to have listening sessions. I do think that there's opportunity for us to educate the public on this process that we're going to have. It is going to be different. Just like when the gentleman came in today, I could hear him talking and having the frustration that he had, because he wanted us to investigate his case. He did not want to go back to the police department, and he was adamant about that. And I do think that there's this there is a fundamental lack of understanding of what it is that this board is supposed to do now. And I think that people, they don't feel the frustration as much until they want to file a complaint. And when they want to file that complaint, because I get those calls, I've received a lot of calls that I did not necessarily log with our intake, but we hear it all the time. Well, why do we don't want to go back to the police department to make this complaint or whatever. And so I think having community organizations show up and we talk about the processes, or have materials for them to be able to take with them that have a step-by-step process for them. And then I think it's still people that just don't have a clear understanding of our role in public safety, and how important it is that although we may not investigate the way that we used to, we still have opportunity to review and audit processes to make certain that they are following their own policies and adhering to whatever those are. And I think I appreciate that, because I think it's important that we have those listening sessions. I think it's important that we are having town hall meetings and inviting not only, community members, but also those in governance, because I think it's important that they hear what people are saying specific to police accountability work. So.
Yeah, and I think that is a great idea, Member Witzel. And it really centers the community's voice, right? And especially their place and what our role is in this city when it comes to community police relations, and what oversight will look like on the other side of the community review board. And so without the community's input, we are doing the community a disservice. And so before we go and define who we are and what we will be doing as a community review board, I think it would behoove us to engage with the community at a very high level, so their voices can be centered and we don't lose that aspect, right? So I don't think a law, in my opinion, can take away the voice of the community. And so to ensure that their voice is included in what our role will look like has everything to do with organizations that are designed to center the voices of community members. It would be right for us to engage with them in a different way and be very intentional about how we do that. I do believe, as we are, looking at SOPs and how we conduct business with not only the community but with the police department, we will have to do more listening than we do talking. Right. And so that means that listening sessions, being engaged in more deeply in what this looks like for Nashville, because the community spoke volumes in 2018 and 2019 on what this community oversight board should look like. I think they are owed an opportunity to have that same effect on the community review board. So great idea, being very intentional about engagement and voices being heard as a community review board. Member Beard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a couple of comments. First, I want to agree with my fellow board member Witzel on the engagement of the community. One of the things I was thinking about when Member Wynn was speaking about the sexual misconduct, the trauma, I am on the board of the Sexual Assault Center. And I think it would be amazing for the public to understand one of the things that Member Wynn stated that the individuals do not want to go to the police department to make that first statement that they have been sexually assaulted. If you go to the sexual assault center, you actually get care. You actually do the kit. It's the place in Nashville in which victims can actually go, so they do not have to go to the police department. And they have trauma training and they have counselors. I mean, it is really unknown to probably the mass public about that service. So if we look at the new data that we see that the people are traumatized about going to the police department, I do believe we as a board need to have the opportunity to educate the community about where they can go. And then to the point that Director Fletcher said about the individuals coming to say that they did not want to go to make a complaint to the police department. So, and to the point that we heard earlier that we possibly can do a director complaint, then maybe our first complaint is how you are intaking complaints. And that complaint can be reviewed, and then we can give our recommendation, because we need to look at what we can't do anymore and how we can get that information or those recommendations to the board through the processes to the police department through the processes that we do have, right? So I understand that the law says what we cannot do, but there's a ways in the law in which we can ensure that the things that we believe that needs to be recommended to the police department can be. And I think that's a creative way of thinking, to the point that as I'm a lawyer, there are certain things we cannot do under the law. The law is the law. Right. But there are also some creative ways in which we can take the law and use that to our benefit. That is a legal way of doing so. So I do want us to think about that, especially that's why I became a member of the MOU committee. The last thing I want to say is that as we move forward, in Memphis, I was a part of the first board that actually reviewed the public officials, the elected public officials in Memphis. And it was created by Mayor Wharton when he was there. And I think that we are in a very key moment to create momentum, that despite what has happened with the legislature, that we can use the power that we do have to continue the spirit that the people of Nashville want and need, and our need in the city of Nashville to continue. And so, as you say, we do have a lot of work to do, but this is meaningful work. It is work that we should be proud of. It is work that is going to make a difference for the community of Nashville. It is going to bring, hopefully, a higher level of accountability to our police department, which we need. We do not, I'm single. I call the police when I hear things. We need the police department, but we do want to make sure that the processes and the policies and the procedures are in line in which the public feels safe enough to go to our police department. And so that's our goal. I am so excited to be on this board at this point of time. I kind of got in on the back end, but I'm definitely excited about creating a board, the policies and procedures that will greatly benefit our Nashville community.
All right. Thank you, Member Beard. I heard the passion in your voice. Thank you. I must want to give you an applause. Member Brown.
Just two short comments. We basically say we allow 2 minutes for public comment, which is pretty short. I know as a practical matter, you don't enforce that in many cases, but I wonder if people see that and think it's not worth doing it. So maybe we should formally extend that time. The other thing is, 2 or 3 of our last meetings, we ran into a problem where we had to be out at a certain time. Right. If we're going to get more people there and more comments and more stuff, I think we're going to need to schedule where we can, I hate to say run run more time or start earlier or something, but we run into a problem with have to be out by 8 o'clock.
Member Brown, that is an excellent point. That's an excellent comment. So as we are thinking about Member Witzel's, idea of inviting community organizations for people to speak, because if they're here, I'm sure that they want to be on record and speak, then we have to take into account where we're having our meetings. Before, 7:30, we're wrapping it up. We're wrapping up cords and moving chairs. And so if we're going to do that, we have to make sure that we take that into account as well. So I agree. Thank you for raising that point. Member Beard.
I do want to say on one of the documents that's in our packet, the overall summary about engagement community, the second bullet says that public comment portion of the CRB needs to be expanded. So those were one of the recommendations by our expert that we brought in on that. And I do think that that's something we can address.
Yes. I agree. And so what we will do is make sure that we discuss that at our next executive committee meeting, because that's something that we can implement pretty quickly.
Yeah, we don't set the tone for that. I mean, if we do it at rec centers, they close at a certain time. So that means that I think what we have to do is cut down our own public commentary.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
So I'm just saying, because they're mandated to get out of there. And then because if not, they have to pay workers for overtime, which was something that happened kind of like at the Lentz Public Health Center. So we just have to find a better and creative way. Here is always open.
Right.
We have the ability to extend the time pretty much. But is this the place that we want to conduct all of our meetings? I don't know. So that's something that I think who's ever on the community outreach and engagement committee, yes, so we can get some work through.
That's a good point as well. And so that's why I was thinking that we are mindful when we are inviting organizations where the meetings will be, right? So if we're out in the community, it may not be one of the sessions where a community organization is being invited. It could be something a little bit more not more creative, because that's the most creative, but it would just determine where we have the meeting.
So let me ask this question to Ms. Fox then. Is it just set in stone that we have to have our meetings within a metro government agency? I know that initially I was told that it's in the codes, but is it a way that if, for instance, a community organization wanted to host us at their location to have our board meeting, would that be outside, or could we get special permission to do that?
Let me check on that.
Okay. All right, that'd be great. All right. Sorry.
I don't think we need to change the public speaking to 2 minutes. I think it should remain there on file, but if we prefer to let them go longer than we can. But see, some people have got a little ministry in them and they can go on and on, But we still, it'll be a positive hour. We can always stand by, this is what we normally do, 2 minutes, and that's what we stand by. But if we want to let them go a little bit longer, if we got some concrete information, then you can, But we got something right and said, well, that's what we normally do.
Okay. Thank you, Member Holloway. And I also think it would be different if someone is presenting on their organization versus public comment, right? So if it's a presentation, under the guise of public comment, that's something totally different. And so they would be on the agenda if they needed a significant amount of time.
And just for community outreach things, I think I get a lot of invitations for community engagement and outreach, and I haven't been forwarding that to you all to see if you would like to, accompany me to some of this stuff, and so I will do that moving forward. So if you guys have some time in your schedule and it's something of interest to you, I will definitely want you to attend with me, or or just on your own if you want. So I have one thing that I forgot to mention. It is under new business, and that is I have met with the Metro Property director. And we have looked at a location that I think that we have kind of honed in on. And I looked at multiple places over the last few months, and I think I mentioned a couple to you all at the last meeting. One was in Donaldson. It was at it was near the, I guess the post-certification training thing on Lebanon Road. It was pretty much a gutted building that the social services, they're moving there. I didn't think that would be a great location for the work that we do, because as I looked at the information I received from the research in regards to where complaints were taking place, because I wanted to be really intentional about where we're going to be located. The majority of our complaints come from the downtown core, like, right north, north and east, and some in west. South had some complaints as well, Hermitage and all that, but I think that the downtown core would prove to be, it would be just a best location for us. And so I was looking at Metro Center previously, and I talked to you all about that. Apparently the place that we looked at initially, I can't remember the name of it, has already been, rented out, so they didn't have that location. The second place in Metro Center, I think it was really expensive, and since Metro Action Commission as well as Social Services did not want to be at that location because it didn't offer them what they needed, I think that, because they wanted to kind of lump a lease together, which makes sense. That didn't work out. So the place that they showed us was downtown. They gave us two options. One is in the same place that the public defender and some others are going. I can't remember.
It's on Second Ave.
It's down the street from where we are, which if anybody has been to our office lately, you know that it looks like a war zone. It's really horrible. So I decided that wasn't going to be a great place for us for accessibility purposes. And so the next place they showed us was inside of the LNC Tower. And so that, although it is downtown, it came with parking spaces and some other things that I think would be fantastic for our office, although we are working on, and it was already built out. So that was also a big thing that was important, because some of the other locations were not built out and they didn't know what the time frame would be. Our lease expires on May 1st. We're hoping to be able to move right at that time. And we would, if we moved into this location, we would have minimal, reconstruct, what do they call it?
Like renovation?
Yeah, renovation. Yeah, we wouldn't have to do a whole lot of that. And so I talked to Chair Haddock. She visited the location. I took the staff to visit the location, and I think that everyone was pretty satisfied with it. And so I just wanted to put that out there. We now have to write a letter for justification because it is more square footage, although it doesn't really seem that way, but it is. And so they are asking that we write a letter to justify why we need that amount of space. So that's the next step in that. So any questions about that? No? Okay. That's it for me.
All right. And so the completed process for moving Director Fitchard, we'll do the justification, and then what will come next?
The justification letter and the renovation, there was some minimal renovation there that was needed. The cost is a big issue because it's going to be a big issue with anywhere we move, because they have to build out the infrastructure for the IT and all of that. So that's where the money comes from for the move. So we would be asking for that in our budget request, Mr. Goddard. And so, and then it has to go through 3 readings, which I thought was interesting. But that's the way it's set up in the Metro, I guess in the Metro Code. So any lease agreements with Metro have to go through 3 readings. Okay. And so they wanted us to make this decision really quickly so that they can, move forward on the 3 readings.
Okay.
So I don't really know. What I don't know, and this is I have to call them back, is, who approves this justification? Is it the mayor's administration? Is it the property director? I don't know. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So if I know you well, you'll be on top of the budgeting aspect of it. Okay, great. And so it seems like we need to kind of get this process going so we can,
Yeah, I plan on writing a letter this week.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay.
Oh, and then one thing, and then I won't say anything else. I just wanted to say that I wanted people to be encouraged about this CRB situation, although it's not what we're doing exactly. When I was at NACO and many of the others, we met a lot of people who have review boards. Of course, it wasn't snatched, what they did wasn't snatched away from them and this was thrown at them. But I will say that they have been thriving in the work they're doing. It's not perfect. They still have issues with relationships within, just the work itself is challenging. Everyone talked about the challenges, but I think coming together as a group of people who are civilian oversight professionals was very helpful to hear what other people are dealing with, that we're not out here, siloed in Tennessee where, these things are happening. They're happening across the country. It doesn't make it feel any better, but I will say I was encouraged by the many people that I spoke with at that conference, and other leaders as well as just laypersons, and then outside professionals, like on the panel I was on, as we talked about what are some strategies for this, and what do we do with what we're left with, and so all of those things have been helpful in my mindset, and how we're supposed to move forward and operate as a board, and what your priorities are as this board, and for our agency, our staff to carry out those things. So I think that we're all inspired to do this work and to continue doing the work that we're doing, and hopefully do it in a more effective way.
And just to kind of go off of your assessment of the NACO conference, what was also very encouraging was the fact that people across the country want to get involved in what's happening here.
Yes.
So it's not about, we're on this island and we're the only ones being attacked by the state legislature. It's happening all across the country. Mm-hmm. But what I heard from practitioners and from people who are doing oversight work in different capacities is that they are willing to support us as much as we need them to support us. This is not just a singular issue. It's not Nashville's problem. This is our problem, right? The police misconduct and issues of transparency and oversight of police departments is a serious topic. People care about it and they want to get involved. And so what I walked away with was how we have national support.
Yes.
And so even though we feel all alone sometimes, Member Beard, when it comes to, the assault that was waged against us, what I found out is that we have peers across the country who are willing to lend us anything, any resource that we need, their voices, their time, their support. And so that's what we came back with. We didn't just go to Chicago and let the wind beat us up because I came back sick. What we did come back with was national support for the efforts that we have conducted over the last 4.5 years. And that was very encouraging, mm-hmm. Not just from, one organization. It was national, from the U.S. District Attorney's Office, inquiring about meeting with us on topics that are specific to Nashville and the state of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to leave us with. I want us to really understand that this work. We're not doing it alone. We do have peers in other cities that are willing to come in with us.
And we did have people from Knoxville. That office was there. And then I've heard from the office in Memphis.
Yes.
And so people are still looking to Nashville as the leaders in civilian oversight. And so I would say this is our opportunity to extend what we know and our professionalism and our expertise to these other boards across the country, but also here in Tennessee, our peer agencies. And then at the very end of this conference, we were reminded on why we do this work. It was a panel of community members from the community who had lost loved ones. The young man that they created a movie on called Fruitville Station. Oscar Grant's family was there. Rakia Boyd's family was there. There was another young man who was killed who was having a mental health crisis, was a top student, had just had a severe episode of anxiety, and I don't know exactly what he was experiencing. His father was there. He went to Morehouse. He was working on a master's degree. He had some kind of episode. I don't know if he was, what he was experiencing, and he was fatally shot by the police at a car dealership. And they thought that he was, breaking into cars or something. And so we heard from those families. It reminded us why we do this work. And I think although the tragedies were there, I think that we were left with feeling inspired. I went on to the Cultural Center, which was right down the street, where Rakia Boyd, she was killed by an off-duty Chicago police officer in a park. She was unarmed, and they had a whole exhibit on Black women who were killed by the police. It was called the Black Girlhood Altar. It was very sobering, but it was very, I felt really connected to the things that I saw there. And so I will say, if you all want to look at that, you can look at it online. It was very inspiring for me.
All right.
Although sad, but still very much inspiring.
It reminds us why we do the work.
Yep.
So, if there's anything else, any additional new business or announcements? All right.
All right.
That brings us to the last item on our agenda. All right. Can I get a second? Second. All right. All in favor of adjourning? All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. We're right on.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.